In the sterile glare of a pre-op room, Samuel Thorne, a farmer whose hands were more accustomed to soil and struggled in surgical gowns, took a slow, steadying breath. His own farm was dying, acre by precious acre, yet here he lay, about to give away a part of his very being. Across town, Isabella Rossi, a woman whose name once commanded boardrooms, now whispered desperate prayers from a hospital bed, her body failing, her hope dwindling to a fragile ember. Neither knew the other. Neither could fathom how one man's quiet, almost reckless act of kindness, born from his own impending loss, would ignite a wave of gratitude so profound, so unexpected. It would not only save a life but send ripples of astonishment across the globe. What could possibly follow such a sacrifice? The answer would redefine generosity itself. Samuel's days were etched with the rhythms of resilience and quiet desperation. Greenacre's farm, his only inheritance, his heart's home, was succumbing to a 3-year drought. The sun, once a life-giver, now beat down like a judgment. Each morning, he'd walk the cracked earth, the sight of withered corn stalks a fresh stab of grief. Martha, his late wife, had seen beauty even in the leanest times, her laughter and melody now only a poignant echo in the vast silence. Her photograph on the dusty mantelpiece, her smile gentle yet strong, was both a comfort and a constant reminder of all he was losing. The bank's letters, increasingly stark, lay in a dreaded pile on the kitchen table, a countdown to foreclosure. He felt the weight of generations, the fear of being the thorn who let it all slip away. Yet, even as his world crumbled, Samuel's compassion remained an unyielding spring. He'd share his well water, already dangerously low, with the wilting wildflowers Martha had planted by the porch, a small act of defiance against the pervasive dryness. When Old Man Hemlock's dog went missing, Samuel spent 2 days searching, long after others had given up, finally finding the whimpering creature tangled in old fencing. He never spoke of these things. They were simply the right thing to do. His own loneliness was a quiet shadow, broken only by the crackle of an old radio, its stories of distant lives a fleeting escape from the encroaching despair. The thought of losing the farm felt like a slow tearing, a betrayal of Martha's memory, a surrender he wasn't ready for. Even as options dwindled to none, miles away, in the heart of a glittering metropolis, Isabella Rossi's life had once been a symphony of achievement. As a visionary CEO of Rossi Innovations, she'd sculpted skylines and technological futures. Her days were a whirlwind of high-stakes negotiations, keynote speeches, and the satisfying hum of a well-orchestrated empire. Control was her comfort, ambition her fuel. Then, one afternoon, during a crucial board meeting, her world fractured. The diagnosis, end-stage renal disease. Her kidneys, silent traitors, were giving up. Suddenly, the woman who managed multi-billion-dollar P&LS couldn't manage her own body. Her existence shrank to the sterile confines of a luxury hospital suite, her calendar dictated by dialysis sessions. 3 times a week, for agonizing hours each, a lifeline that leached her vitality. Her vast fortune, capable of acquiring companies and islands, was impotent against this cellular rebellion. Her name was on a transplant list, a mere statistic among thousands, her rare blood type and high antibody count, making a match a statistical near impossibility. Her assistant, the ever-loyal Maria, tried to maintain a facade of normalcy, but Isabella saw the pity in the eyes of her doctors, the carefully masked fear of Maria's. She, who had always been surrounded by people, felt an isolation so profound it was a physical ache. The vibrant, driven Isabella was fading, replaced by a terrified woman watching her future dissolve. Isabella's health took a sudden, terrifying plunge. A virulent infection seized her weakened body, and the dialysis treatments became less and less effective. Dr. Albright, her lead physician, sat by her bedside, her expression gentle but grave. Isabella, she said, her voice low, we're running out of time. The infection is overwhelming your system. We need a kidney, urgently. Without it, the unspoken words hung in the air, heavy and cold. Maria, tears streaming down her face, frantically worked her contacts, pulling every string. But hope seemed a cruel mirage. The clock was a relentless, deafening tick. Back in Harmony Creek, Samuel sat in the worn chair of the local clinic, a dry, persistent cough rattling his chest, a souvenir of dusty fields and sleepless, worried nights. While waiting, his gaze drifted to a brightly colored flyer on the community notice board. Be a lifeline. Be an altruistic donor. It urged, showing a simple graphic of one hand reaching for another. It spoke of giving to a stranger, a non-directed donation. His first instinct was to dismiss it. He was old, worn out, his own life unraveling. What could he possibly offer? But the words give the gift of life snagged in his mind, echoing Martha's quiet philosophy. Even when you think you have nothing left, Samuel, kindness is a well that never runs dry. He thought of her, her gentle strength in the face of her own illness. He thought of the farm, slipping away regardless of his efforts. Maybe this was a different kind of harvest. He carefully detached the flyer and tucked it into his pocket, the doctor's diagnosis of bronchitis already fading into the background. The flyer lived on Samuel's kitchen table for days, a splash of color amidst the grim reality of overdue bills. During the long, quiet evenings, between futile attempts to coax water from the dry well and staring at the unforgiving sky, he'd smooth out its creases and read it again. He pictured Martha, tending her small herb garden, humming softly. What good is a life if it doesn't touch another? She'd often mused. The thought terrified him. Surgery, recovery, leaving the farm untended even for a short while could be the final blow. But then, a starker thought, what if the farm was lost anyway? What if this was his one chance to make a profound difference, to honor Martha's spirit in a way that truly mattered? With a resolve that felt both alien and deeply right, he walked to the town's tiny public library. Mrs. Gable, the librarian with kind eyes, helped him navigate the bewildering internet. He typed in altruistic kidney donation, his callous fingers clumsy on the keyboard. He read about the risks, yes, but also about the lives transformed. He learned that health, not just age, was the key factor. And despite the drought and the worry, Samuel was, at his core, a strong man. The idea solidified from a tentative, maybe to a quiet, unshakable I must. He picked up the old Bakelite telephone in his kitchen, its cord twisted and frayed, and dialed the number on the flyer. My name is Samuel Thorne, he said, his voice steadier than he expected. I think I can help someone. The transplant coordinator, a warm-voiced woman named Linda, listened with a respect that touched Samuel deeply. An older farmer, offering such a gift with no prompting? It was rare. The journey began. Trips to the city hospital, a bewildering world of gleaming corridors and hushed efficiency. Tests, scans, countless questions from doctors and psychologists. They saw his worn clothes, his sun-etched face, the quiet dignity that clung to him. They probed his motives, gently. Samuel's answers were simple. Someone out there is suffering. If I can ease that, I should. He didn't mention his own dire straits, his impending losses. This wasn't about him. Weeks later, Linda called, her voice tinged with controlled excitement. Mr. Thorne, the results are in. You're not only healthy enough, you're an excellent match for a patient in critical need. Samuel closed his eyes, a wave of profound, unexpected peace washing over him. He didn't ask for details about the recipient. It was enough to know he could help. All right then, he said softly. What's next? The news reached Isabella like a ray of impossible sunshine piercing through the darkest storm clouds. Dr. Albright entered her room, no longer with guarded optimism, but with a smile that lit up her face. Isabella, it's confirmed. We have an altruistic donor. A perfect match. The surgery can proceed. Isabella stared, speechless. Tears, not of despair, but of overwhelming, disbelieving relief, began to flow. She clutched Maria's hand, her knuckles white. A stranger. Someone, somewhere, was offering her life itself. The sheer magnanimity of it was breathtaking. Who was this person? This angel of mercy? A deep, fervent gratitude welled within her, so potent it made her tremble. She yearned to know them, to thank them, but understood the delicate dance of anonymity. Samuel began his preparations. The surgery was scheduled. His first task, and the hardest, was talking to Jedediah Stone, his gruff, elderly neighbor. Jed, after his initial volley of grumbles about newfangled city foolishness and letting doctors carve you up for no good reason, listened as Samuel explained, as much as he felt able. "Look after Bessie the cow and the chicken for me, Jed, will you? And keep an eye on that old irrigation pump. The south field might just have a chance if that pump keeps chugging." Jed, who had been the recipient of Samuel's quiet help more times than he'd ever admit, just cleared his throat gruffly. "Suppose I can manage that for a bit. You just make sure you come back in one piece. Samuel, why here? This valley ain't got enough good men as it is." A knot of anxiety tightened in Samuel's chest as he walked his land that evening, the setting sun painting the dusty fields in melancholic hues of orange and purple. This farm was his lifeblood, his history, Martha's legacy. The thought of not returning to it, or returning too broken to work it, was a heavy, unspoken fear. Later, in the quiet of his small living room, illuminated by the soft glow of a single lamp, he took out a piece of lined paper and, with painstaking care, wrote a simple will. He had no family left to inherit. He decided to leave Green Acres, should the worst happen, to a local agricultural trust he'd read about, one dedicated to preserving small farms and promoting sustainable practices. It was the best he could do to honor Martha's memory and the land they both loved. He sealed it in an envelope addressed to his lawyer in the county seat, a man he hadn't seen in nearly a decade. In her hospital room, Isabella felt a profound shift within her. The constant, suffocating dread had begun to recede, replaced by a fragile but steadily growing anticipation. She asked Maria to bring her the elegant leather-bound writing set she kept in her city apartment. With a pen that felt unfamiliar and heavy in her weakened hand, she began to write a letter. "To my kind and generous donor," it started. She poured her heart onto the creamy pages, expressing a depth of gratitude that words seemed too small to contain, a sense of awe at their selfless courage. She spoke of the life they were gifting back to her, the future she hadn't dared to dream of for so long. She folded it carefully, sealed it, and gave it to Dr. Albright, asking her to ensure it was given to her donor, if and when they were willing to receive it. An invisible thread, woven from shared vulnerability and burgeoning hope, now connected these two souls, strangers on the precipice of a shared destiny. The day of the surgeries arrived, dawning crisp and clear, full of unspoken prayers. The operating rooms were theaters of focused calm, the surgical teams moving with practiced precision. Hours passed, and then it was done. 2 lives, forever changed, lay recovering. Samuel awoke first, a deep, throbbing ache in his side, but also an unexpected, almost ethereal sense of lightness, of peace. He had done it. He had kept his silent promise to a stranger, and perhaps to Martha. A nurse smiled down at him, her voice gentle. "Welcome back, Mr. Thorne. Everything went perfectly." He managed a weak, grateful smile in return. A few hours later, Isabella opened her eyes. The fog of anesthesia slowly cleared. She felt different. The constant, wearying drag of her illness was noticeably lessened. There was a new, subtle energy humming within her, a warmth spreading from her core. Dr. Albright was by her bedside, her expression radiating a joyful relief. "Isabella, your new kidney is working beautifully. You did wonderfully." Tears welled in Isabella's eyes, this time a pure, unadulterated joy. As the days turned into weeks, her recovery progressed with astonishing speed. The color returned to her cheeks, the sparkle to her eyes. With each passing day, she felt stronger, more alive than she had in years. And with that returning strength came an ever-growing, all-consuming desire. She had to meet the person who had given her this miraculous second chance. Samuel's recovery was slower, more challenging. His body, hardened by a lifetime of physical labor, protested the enforced stillness and a lingering pain. But his spirit, though weary, was content. The hospital staff, from the renowned surgeons to the cheerful orderlies, treated him with a quiet, profound respect that both touched and embarrassed him. Linda, the transplant coordinator, visited him regularly. She told him his recipient was doing exceptionally well, thriving even, and was very keen to meet him, if he was willing. Samuel, a naturally private and humble man, hesitated. He hadn't done it for thanks or recognition, but a quiet curiosity stirred within him, a gentle pull to see the face of the life he had helped save. He agreed. The meeting was arranged in a quiet, sunlit hospital lounge, a neutral space away from the clinical bustle, filled with comfortable chairs and pots of cheerful flowers. Isabella, dressed in an elegant silk robe Maria had brought from home, felt a flutter of nervous anticipation. She had imagined her donor in so many ways, a young idealist perhaps, or a devoutly religious person. When the door opened and Samuel Thorne walked in, leaning lightly on a simple wooden cane, guided gently by Linda, Isabella was momentarily speechless. He was older than she'd envisioned, perhaps in his late 50s, though the lines etched on his face spoke of a life that had weathered more than just years. His hands, resting on the crook of the cane, were gnarled and calloused, the unmistakable hands of a man who worked the earth. His clothes were plain, well-worn but immaculately clean. He looked like a farmer, a kind, tired, noble farmer. He offered a shy, hesitant smile. "Ma'am," he said, his voice soft, a little raspy. Linda, her own eyes shining, made the introductions. "Isabella Rossi, this is Samuel Thorne. Samuel, this is Isabella." Isabella found her voice, though it trembled slightly. "Mr. Thorne, Samuel, please sit." As they sat, Linda gently facilitated the initial conversation, then discreetly excused herself, leaving them to connect. Isabella, her usual corporate poise entirely absent, simply looked at him, a thousand unspoken emotions welling in her heart. She asked him about himself, and he spoke, simply and without any embellishment, of green acres, of the relentless drought, of his late wife Martha's abiding love for the land. He didn't speak directly of his financial struggles, not in words of complaint, but the weariness in his eyes and the quiet dignity with which he described his life painted a clear picture. He explained he'd seen a poster, felt a strong pull to help. He had expected nothing in return. Isabella listened, a growing sense of awe, a profound humility washing over her. This man, who clearly possessed so little in material terms, who was himself facing the devastating loss of his home and his heritage, had offered the most precious gift of all, a part of his own living body, to a complete stranger. The sheer, unadulterated selflessness of it, the quiet, unassuming courage, the profound depth of his empathy, it struck her to the very core of her being. This wasn't a calculated act of charity from someone with resources to spare. This was a true sacrifice, a genuine offering from a man who understood, perhaps more deeply than she ever could, the intrinsic value of life and the binding power of human connection. Tears began to trace paths down Isabella's cheeks. "Samuel," she whispered, her voice choked with emotion, You saved my life. You, a stranger, with your own heavy burdens. You gave me back my future. There are no words big enough to thank you." Samuel looked at her, his gaze gentle, a flicker of surprise in his kind eyes at the intensity of her reaction. He reached out a callous hand, hesitatingly, then patted her arm comfortingly. Now, ma'am," he said softly. "No need for such tears. I'm just glad I could help. Seeing you looking so well, so full of life, that's thanks enough for any man." His humility was so genuine, so profound, it brought a fresh wave of emotion to Isabella. In the days that followed, back in the familiar luxury of her penthouse apartment, overlooking the glittering city skyline, Isabella couldn't stop thinking about Samuel Thorne. His quiet dignity, his profound kindness, the stark reality of his struggling existence. It haunted her waking moments and filled her dreams. Her body was healing, her energy returning with astonishing vigor, but her mind, her soul, felt a new kind of restlessness. The thank you she had offered, heartfelt as it was, felt woefully, laughably inadequate. It was a whisper against the thunder of his sacrifice. Her gratitude, she realized, needed to be more than words. It needed to be an action, a force as powerful and life-affirming as his own selfless gift. This was the turning point. The moment Isabella Rossi, the brilliant strategist, the compassionate woman reborn, decided that her gratitude wouldn't just touch Samuel's life. It would resonate. Samuel Thorne had no idea what was about to unfold. Isabella, with Maria's dedicated assistance, began to work with a quiet, fierce determination. She made calls, consulted financial advisors, agricultural experts, even water management engineers. Her personal fortune, once a tool for building a business empire, was now to be wielded for a different kind of construction, rebuilding a good man's life and honoring his extraordinary spirit. A few weeks later, when Samuel was back on Green Acres, the familiar weight of an impending loss settling heavily on his shoulders despite the joy of his own recovery, a sleek black car, followed by a sturdy pickup truck, pulled up his dusty, rutted driveway. He watched from the porch, puzzled and a little apprehensive, as Isabella Rossi emerged, looking vibrant and purposeful, followed by Maria and a couple of men in practical work clothes. Isabella walked towards him, a radiant smile on her face, a thick manila envelope clutched in her hand. "Samuel," she said, her voice warm and full of an emotion that made his old heart stir, "we have some news for you. May we come in?" He invited them into his humble living room. The afternoon sun casting long, dancing stripes across the worn wooden floorboards. Isabella didn't waste time. She explained, her eyes shining, about a new venture she was undertaking. She spoke of honoring incredible acts of kindness. Then, with tears welling in her own eyes, she handed him the envelope. "Samuel," she said, her voice thick with unspeakable gratitude, "this contains the deeds to Green Acres. The mortgage is paid in full. The farm is yours, free and clear. And that truck outside, it's carrying components for a new solar-powered irrigation system and the finest drought-resistant seed available. We also have a team ready to help you restore the soil, repair the barn, whatever it needs." Samuel stared at her, then at the envelope, his weathered face a mask of stunned, utter disbelief. His calloused fingers trembled as he slowly opened it, pulling out the official-looking documents. His eyes scanned the words, blurring through the sudden mist that filled them. Paid in full. He looked up at Isabella, his own eyes now overflowing with tears. He made no attempt to hide. They streamed down his leathery cheeks, the first tears of pure, unadulterated joy he had shed in more years than he could count. He tried to speak, but only a choked sob escaped his throat. Isabella moved to his side, gently taking one of his trembling hands in hers. Her own tears flowed freely now. This was the moment, the true culmination of his gift and her overwhelming gratitude. You gave me life, Samuel, she whispered, her voice breaking. You showed the world what true generosity, what selfless courage looks like. This is just a small echo of the gift you gave me. You didn't just save me, you inspired me. You inspired everyone who will hear your story. And hear it they did. Isabella, true to her word, didn't stop there. She established the Martha Thorne Foundation for Altruistic Heroes. In honor of Samuel's late wife and his incredible act, she seeded it with a significant portion of her own wealth. She then shared Samuel's story, with his humble permission, first with a local journalist, then through her extensive network. The tale of the struggling farmer who saved the life of a powerful CEO with his own organ, and her astonishing world-class gratitude, capture hearts and imaginations. It wasn't just about the money. It was about the profound human connection, the recognition of quiet heroism. The story went viral, picked up by national news outlets, then international ones. The farmer who gave his all, and the CEO whose gratitude shocked the world, blared headlines. Donations poured into the Martha Thorne Foundation from ordinary people and philanthropists alike, all moved by Samuel's selflessness and Isabella's transformative thankfulness. Samuel, uncomfortable with the spotlight but deeply touched by the honor to Martha's memory, became an unlikely, beloved symbol of the profound impact one good person can have. His quiet act and Isabella's magnificent response had indeed shocked the world in the most beautiful, hopeful way imaginable. In the months and years that followed, Green Acres underwent a renaissance. With cutting-edge sustainable farming techniques, the new irrigation system, and the help of enthusiastic agricultural students inspired by his story, the parched land began to bloom with an abundance Samuel hadn't dared dream of. Laughter and the sounds of purposeful work once again echoed across the fields. Samuel, no longer burdened by debt or crushing worry, found a new vigor, his eyes reflecting the renewed vitality of his land and his spirit. He became a quiet mentor, sharing his lifetime of farming wisdom, his gentle kindness a guiding force. He and Isabella forged an unbreakable bond, a friendship that transcended their vastly different worlds. She visited the farm often, finding a unique peace and profound inspiration in its rustic beauty, and in the steadfast company of the man who had given her a second chance at everything. Her own life, her own work, was forever changed, imbued with a deeper understanding of community, connection, and the ripple effect of compassion. The Martha Thorne Foundation grew, touching countless lives, supporting other unsung altruistic heroes, and revitalizing struggling rural communities, a lasting testament to a single act of selfless courage and the boundless power of gratitude. And so, the story of Samuel Thorne, the struggling farmer, and Isabella Rossi, the grateful CEO, became a cherished chapter in the Kindness Chronicles. It served as an enduring, powerful reminder that no act of kindness, however humble or hidden, is ever truly small. It is a seed, and when planted in the fertile ground of a grateful heart, it can grow into something vast and beautiful, its branches reaching out to shelter, inspire, and connect us all, proving that the deepest, most meaningful riches are always found in the luminous currency of human empathy. One man's quiet sacrifice, met with a world-changing wave of gratitude, illuminated for everyone the extraordinary truth. The most incredible things happen when ordinary people choose to open their hearts wide.